Good evening, Dr. Redway, Dr. Scott and regional colleagues. Welcome to Group D's presentation of the topic. What is the relevance of a history of adult education to us as Caribbean nationals?
Good evening, this is Nicole McLean reporting from CNC Elluminate. Today, we are continuing with our special feature on adult education. Tonight's topic will be focused on the relevance of the history of adult education to us as Caribbean nationals. This takes us to the streets of several Caribbean islands to hear their perspectives.
We are in Grenada, looking for background information on adult education. Hello, good morning. Are you willing to answer a question on education? Thanks. Do you know the origins of our education system in the Caribbean?
I guess, somewhere in England, as they were responsible for us before independence.
That's quite interesting. Dr. Williams, would you like to discuss the role of the church any further?
That's correct when she said Britain, because it was the English who initiated the onset of education. At the time this was done by religious sisters whose objectives were for moral rectitude, crime prevention and to squash any ideas of revolution. This idea was replaced by Sunday schools and later Saturday schools as there was a demand from adults. The Caribbean was no different. Here, objectives were similar. First, schools were set up for poor whites, then introduced to slaves. Opposition came from the ruling class who wanted docile slaves, subservient to their masters.
What is your opinion on the church and its influence on our education system today?
Well, I am a product of a church school, There's been a large percentage of schools in the Caribbean that has been started by a church or generally funded by a church. It also mixes religious moral values with the curriculum. I think in the earlier days the administration tried to convert you, but now it doesn't seem to matter. I also think if it was not for the church, schools probably would not have been in existence for an even longer period.
We are speaking with an adult education lecturer today, Mrs. Olive Dupree-Smith. Mrs. Dupree-Smith, thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. Can you give us an idea of the role adult education played in Trinidad and Tobago's socio-economic development?
Sure. With the changing nature of work and the workplace, as well as information technology and communications, gender, health, and the environment, it is necessary to have adult education. These situations present challenges for adult education and brings into focus the important role that it must play in preparing and equipping Caribbean people so that they can look forward with enthusiasm to the new millennium and enter into the 21st century with confidence.
We are in the research department at the St. Augustine Campus, University of the West Indies, as we look for someone to assist us. Hello, Miss Harvey, we were directed to you. Your area of research is adult and continuing education. Can you explain for us the realities of adult education in the Caribbean today?
The reality is, we are faced with many challenges. Education for all is promoted. However, the stratification system adopted from the British educational system continues. The lower class, with limited educational training, usually the minority, is kept in the unskilled economic sector, as they cannot meet requirements to advance to the higher economic sector. The complex economic activities are continuously obtained by the minority, the wealthy. The wealthy generally prefers to be schooled abroad. So how can we advance our adult education programs if we are to cater to the needs of our learners, the majority? Secondly, there is a lack of teacher preparation courses at this level. Lecturers are usually professionals in their field, disseminating knowledge. But isn't that similar to catechism, obtaining knowledge through repetition and regurgitation?
The educational system is poorly organized. The system has been under reform for a period of time. It almost seems as if a philosophy or strategy is employed ad hovically, without modification or adaptation, made to suit our society. Simply put, there is no ownership. Then there are the external forces that bombard us. Pressures from neoliberal organizations such as IMF, World Bank, Inter-America Development Bank set economic policies that must be adhered to if we are to continue to receive the needed funding or continue to be a membership country.
Dr. Williams, before you answer, if I may interject, I am aware that there are features of adult education such as it's stigmatized because of its separation from academic studies. It is not seen as developmental but as remedial and supplementary to formal education.
That is correct, Mr. Rogers. There is also the need for cohesive policies. A regional curriculum is needed so the same material is disseminated throughout the region. On top of this, there are regional hurdles to take into account. Don't get me wrong, Mr. Rogers. There are possibilities of change. Since a major problem with adult education in the region is migration and subsequent brain drain, CARICOM made a collective decision to alleviate it by investing in primary education. This way less funds would be lost in its development.
I am sorry, ladies, but we are out of time. Join us next week as we continue our series on adult education in the region. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for being our specialist on tonight's show, which dealt with the relevance of a history on adult education to us as Caribbean nationals. Join us next week on CMC's Elluminate. From studios in virtual space, good night.